Is Taiwan ready for nuclear weapons?
Natalie speaks with prominent China expert Chang on why he thinks Taiwan should be a nuclear power.
Then we'll take a look at defense exercises that have been going on in Taiwan this week.
Finally, in Hashtag Taiwan, I'll tell you about an earthquake that shook not only the ground, but also the internet. This is Taiwan Insider.
This week, 5 nuclear powers, the US, UK, China, France, and Russia, made a joint statement agreeing to avoid a nuclear war. Today, I speak with a prominent China expert who thinks the US should give Taiwan nuclear weapons. Gordon Zhang, the author of The Coming Collapse of China, tells me why he thinks Taiwan should have nuclear weapons.
Well, first of all, I think the Biden administration should make a clear declaration that the United States will defend Taiwan and will offer a mutual defense treaty to Taipei. Now, if the Biden administration is not willing to do that, then I think the United States should help Taiwan develop nukes, and I think that the United States should actually transfer nukes to Taipei. And the reason is that it's going to take Taiwan a little bit of time to develop an arsenal. And in that time, it could be very dangerous because China could decide to strike. So I think that the United States needs to eliminate that gap and therefore transfer nuclear weapons. But my preferred solution is that the Biden administration just say, we will defend Taiwan and mean it.
So there have been some experts saying that that kind of clarity in U.S. defense policy might provoke a stronger reaction from China, a more aggressive reaction. What do you think of that?
Of course, we don't know exactly what China will do, but a clear declaration from the Biden administration, I think, will convince Beijing that force is not an option. And the reason is that China is extremely casualty averse. And it realizes that if the United States were to defend Taiwan, the casualties for Beijing would be horrific. They'd be probably so high that the Communist Party wouldn't survive. So we need clarity at this time. Now, of course, we've had this policy of strategic ambiguity for decades, where the United States doesn't tell either side, either Beijing or Taipei, what it would do in the case of imminent conflict. And of course, that policy worked. But that policy was in a benign period, and we're no longer in such a good era. So at this point, we need a clear declaration of what we will do. And if we have that, then we will preserve the peace. But without it, I think Beijing will decide that it could very well take an advantage and the United States won't defend Taiwan.
So do you think that the U.S. would come to Taiwan's defense if China attacked Taiwan?
That's a great question. I would tend to think the U.S. would, but there are certain currents in the Biden administration that concern me. And we know that what China will do in the early stages of a conflict is to threaten nuclear war on the United States. And that could very well intimidate American policymakers. So although I tend to think the U.S. would defend Taiwan, I think that there's substantial uncertainty. And that substantial uncertainty in the minds of Beijing, I think, would be very provocative. That's why I think we need a clear declaration, because a clear declaration will mean that Beijing will decide that it's not worth the cost.
Now, you have said that China is actually very weak, or the leadership is weak, but they are projecting a very strong image, a very strong-handed image. Tell us why you think that China is weak. It seems that, if they're casualty averse, like you say, that means that they are weak and afraid of public opinion.
First of all, they're on the edge of a debt crisis. China has perhaps somewhere between 350 to 400% of debt to GDP, and that clearly is unsustainable. China can't get past its debt crisis because there's just too much debt. But at the same time, they've got a stagnant economy, they've got worsening food shortages, they've got a depleted environment, and they have these accelerated COVID-19 outbreaks that they can't deal with. And in addition to that, China stands on the edge of the steepest projected demographic decline in history in the absence of war or disease. China, according to Chinese demographers, will lose about half its population in 45 years. So Chinese leaders are facing problems that they have no answers to. The thing that worries me, Natalie, is that they might see a closing window of opportunity, which you get a hint of in Chinese propaganda. And the other thing that's concerned is that I think that because of these problems, Xi Jinping is a lot weaker than he appears from the outside. And he very well may decide to cause military misadventure abroad to try to distract his domestic critics, to try to tamp down domestic discontent. And that means a weak China is more dangerous than a strong one.
And we've seen a lot of military activity around Taiwan, a lot of Chinese military planes. What do you make of that?
China's just trying to intimidate Taiwan into submission, which is really what they've been doing for quite some time. Sometimes they use non-military means. Now they're using these provocative flights through Taiwan's air defense identification zone. But it's a real indication that China is on a belligerent path. And although I don't think for certain reasons that China wants to start a war, the point is they're engaging in provocative military activities that could cause an accident, with Taiwan or with the United States or with other countries. And because of that, they could start an unintentional conflict that could spiral out of control. So this is an exceedingly dangerous time.
We talk more about how to prevent a war between Taiwan and China in the full interview, which will be up on YouTube and Facebook.
Jiayi Air Force Base is part of Taiwan's first line of defense against hostile air intrusions. Earlier this week, we got a look at how fighter pilots there stand ready to intercept would-be attackers during a 3-day Spring Festival combat readiness exercise, which started on Wednesday. On display were Taiwan's newly acquired F-16Vs.
Pilots scramble to get to their jets and lift off within 6 minutes of the alarm bell going off. A 3-day Spring Festival combat readiness exercise started on Wednesday. The F-16V pilots are practicing quick takeoffs for a reason. On Tuesday alone, the Chinese Air Force sent 5 sorties into the southwestern part of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Yan Xiangsheng, serving at the Jiayi Air Base, says that he has intercepted Chinese J-16 fighter jets in the past. Each new encounter is scrutinized during the post-mission debriefing to improve future performance. The Jiayi Air Base is part of Taiwan's first line of defense, and all F-16 fighter jets stationed there have been upgraded to the latest V variant. Pilots have also been issued helmets equipped with integrated head-up displays. Each one of those helmets costs 12 million Taiwan dollars or $430,000. Pilots can see crucial flight data in front of their eyes as they are projected on a helmet-mounted display, further integrating the pilot and the machine. F-16Vs have also demonstrated a taxiing maneuver called the elephant walk, during which planes follow each other closely, tail to nose, resembling elephants on their way to a water source. During the exercise, the pilots show off not only their skill and discipline, but also their dedication to defending Taiwan's airspace against intrusions.
Now, you might be thinking there's a lot of focus on Taiwan's Air Force, what with the new F-16Vs and Chinese air incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. But what about Taiwan's ground forces? Well, let me assure you, they're standing ready also, because they had a very impressive exercise earlier this week as well.
This isn't your average battle simulation. This is the second day of Taiwan's intense, non-stop military exercises that are taking place right before the Lunar New Year. The troops are split into 2 teams and are engaging in a battle that is meant to be as realistic as possible, testing the military's competence in a high-pressure and unpredictable environment. Soldiers say that these exercises are focused on maneuvering in tightly enclosed areas while keeping an eye on the enemy and being mindful of blind spots. Their battleground ranges from forests to more urban areas. To add to the intensity, these exercises are carried out continuously for 4 days and 3 nights, without any breaks in between. Unlike some other simulations, soldiers are completely unaware of what attack might come next from the opponent. Officers are also keeping track of where and how the soldiers are killed in the simulation in an effort to strengthen any weak spots. It's full-out warfare, with the soldiers aware that the more casualties they inflict on the enemy, the easier it will be to get the upper hand. The battle continues to wage on through rain and shine, day and night, ensuring that should a real invasion occur, Taiwan will be ready for even the most extreme situations.
Next on hashtag Taiwan, the earthquake that hit us this week.
Happy 2022, everybody. Welcome back to the first hashtag Taiwan of the year. Now, it seems that every time January 1st rolls around, everybody makes a big deal about the first time they do something in that year. For example, countdown events are about experiencing the very first moments of a new year. People in Taiwan will rush to various landmarks to see the first sunrise of the new year, and it's customary for the president to give an address on the first day of the new year as well. I mean, it's not my first time doing hashtag Taiwan, but there's something that just feels different about this episode being the first one of 2022. Do you know what I'm saying? Earlier this week, there was one 2022 first that people couldn't predict: an earthquake. It happened on Monday at around 5:46 p.m., and boy, did it really shake things up. The earthquake was a magnitude 6.0 off Taiwan's eastern coast, and people all over Taiwan could feel it. Now, when it comes to earthquakes in Taiwan, there is one important rule that everyone must follow. It goes a little something like this: when there's an earthquake, you must post about it on social media. I didn't make the rule, it's just part of living life in Taiwan. But this time around, with how powerful the earthquake was, people started posting some pretty jarring stuff online. There's images of light fixtures shaking, stuff falling off of walls and out of filing cabinets. It was just all really chaotic. It's natural for things hanging from ceilings like light fixtures or signs to shake a little when there's an earthquake, and sometimes I have to look at them to make sure there is an earthquake and I'm not just experiencing some random vertigo. But the videos that surfaced in the wake of Monday's earthquake looked like Godzilla was picking up the buildings and shaking them up. Luckily, no one was hurt. A few buildings were damaged, but that was it. Just as a simple reminder, no matter if it's the first, second, third, or fourth of the year, earthquakes are no joke, man. Wanting to document them is fine and all, but make sure you get to a safe place and then you open Instagram. Next up, these are the other stories that are on our radar.
Taiwan is setting up a $200 million fund for investment in Lithuanian industries. That comes as China squeezes Lithuania with retaliatory economic measures due to the opening of a Taiwanese representative office in the Lithuanian capital. Taiwan's representative to Lithuania, Eric Huang, says he expects semiconductors, lasers, and biotechnology to be early focuses of investment. A family court in Kaohsiung has approved an appeal from a same-sex couple to give both spouses parental rights to their child, which one spouse adopted before getting married. The law that legalized same-sex marriage in Taiwan has provisions giving same-sex couples shared parental rights in the case of biological children, but it does not address cases of adoption. Though groundbreaking, the ruling is not considered precedent-setting, meaning that every same-sex couple in Taiwan with adopted children will need to go through the same appeal process to get shared parental rights. At least 8 people connected with Taoyuan International Airport have tested positive for COVID-19. Among those who have fallen ill are several airport cleaners who took the same shuttle bus to and from work. The Taoyuan city government joined specially trained soldiers in disinfecting a market visited by one of the COVID patients. 93 other airport cleaners are now in quarantine as a precautionary measure.
And we're back in the studio to answer our final question of the week. But before we do so, I have to give you a little bit of context. So there was a shipment of dark rum from Lithuania that was headed to China, but that shipment was denied entry into the country. Now, Lithuania was kind of in a pickle because they didn't know what to do with the shipment, and that's when Taiwan Tobacco Liquor Corporation stepped in and said, hey, we'll buy the shipment and you bring it to Taiwan. Now, my question to my co-host this week is, what would you do if you got your hands on a bottle of Lithuanian dark rum? Staś Butler, he's in quarantine right now. I asked him this question because I find him to be a rum enthusiast, and I think he's got some good ideas. Staś?
Well, what I would make using Lithuanian dark rum is a pina colada. Now, I know these things are traditionally made using white rum or kind of lighter colored rum. So if there are any Lithuanian companies out there that are struggling to deliver shipments to China, I hope that a Taiwanese company might step in and we could complete the recipe for me.
Oh, Stash, you good old dependable guy. Natalie, what would you do with a bottle of dark rum?
Well, first I would pair it with some Lithuanian chocolate.
Oh, that's good.
Very delicious. And I would give a toast to my favorite Lithuanian MPs, Dovilė Sakliani and Matas Maldeikas.
I think they'll appreciate that very much so.
Long live Lithuania and Taiwan friendship.
For me, if you guys look on your screen right now, there's a picture that the National Development Council in Taiwan shared on Instagram, and they give you 4 recipes that you can use the Lithuanian dark rum for. There's chocolate, there's rum raisin French toast, there's steak, and there's a cocktail for the dark and stormy, which is kind of classic. I must say, I am interested in the steak because that involves marinating the steak in the rum and then pan-frying it. But let us know what you think you would like to do with Lithuanian dark rum. And as always, drink responsibly, guys. And that just about does it for this edition of Taiwan Insider. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Leslie Liao.
And I am Natalie Tso.
Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, all the places.
Leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. And we'll see you next time.
See you guys.